Gurudevo Maheshwara. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. Tasmai Shri Gurave
The Guru, or the Dispeller of Darkness, occupies an exalted role in Indian philosophy. A Guru awakens, a Guru enlightens, a Guru guides. A Guru touches the lives of his disciples and shows them the right path. The chemical engineering profession and teaching in India has been uniquely blessed by the benevolent touch of an illustrious Guru, Professor N R Kamath. Born on September 8, 1914, Narayan Rangappa Kamath hailed from Mulki, a small town on the banks of the river Shambhavi, near Mangalore, in South Kannada district of Karnataka state. A young Narayan completed his early education in Mulki and his SSLC from Government College, Mangalore, in 1930 with high credits. He moved to St. Xavier's College, Bombay, where he completed the BSc course in 1934 with a unique distinction of securing 100% marks in chemistry, a record unequaled in Bombay University for the next 40 years. There were many other firsts to his credit as well. He joined the Bombay University's Department of Chemical Technology in 1934, the first batch of the BSc Technology in Chemical Engineering, and was among the first students who graduated with a first-class distinction in 1936. NRK was awarded the coveted Nathubai Mangaldas Scholarship by Bombay University for higher studies abroad after his graduation. He joined the University College London, where he successfully completed a postgraduate diploma course in chemical engineering before commencing on his doctoral research work under the guidance of Professor H.E. Watson on the drying of pigments. Unfortunately, NRK's doctoral research had to be curtailed due to World War II, and he took a temporary job at the London Shellac Research Bureau, hoping that he would be able to resume his work after the war. But as the war situation worsened, and since the lab that he worked was completely bombed out, destroying his work, he had to give up all hopes of a doctoral degree. NRK met his bride Rosina in the spring of 1939 at an opera called Battered Bride by the noted Czech composer Smetana, which was being enacted in Covent Garden. The chance encounter soon developed into a deeper bond as they continued to meet through 1939 and 1940. In 1942, the two decided to take the plunge and get married. NRK's work during the years 1940-46 at Shellac resulted in as many as 18 publications covering many aspects of lac utilization. In 1946, declining several offers to settle in the UK, NRK chose to accept a position at the UDCT in Mumbai and returned to India with his wife Rosina. By 1949, Professor N R Kamath started separate courses in plastics, pigments, paints and varnishes and laid firm foundations for the PPV laboratory at UDCT. In 1952, NRK cooperated with Major Hammond, R.V. Raghavan and others to set up the Colours Society, which set excellent relations with the chemical industry. In 1958, Professor Kamath was appointed Professor of Polymer Technology in the Department of Chemical Technology.
Professor N R Kamath was the chemical engineer from the first batch of UDCT in 1936. And he had an awful reputation as a scholar. And he was Professor of Polymer Technology. So I knocked at his door and he says, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm so and so. I want to do research." He said, "Sit down. What do you want to work in?" So I told him what I want to work in. Now, some part which I wanted to do, he wasn't too fond of that, almost allergic. He says, "Why?" So I ran into a big argument with him, why I think that subject is good and why I should be working in thermodynamics and what ideas I have and how I'll pursue them. I also said how I will approach them. But so great was my involvement with him in discussions of various kinds other than my research. Something on my research, but predominantly outside research, other research students and all.
Professor NRK resigned from his position at UDCT to take up the post of Professor and Head of Chemical Engineering Department at IIT Bombay in March 1959, where he continued till his retirement on 30th September 1974.
At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the profound influence Professor Kamath had in shaping my professional career. Working as a faculty in the Department of Chemical Engineering under him was a rewarding experience. He demonstrated by example and not by diktat how effectively a faculty could function in an academic environment. For him, imparting meaningful education to students was the utmost priority. One could learn from him the style of pedagogy that will deliver the most to the students. I was amazed at the vast reservoir of knowledge he was privy to and the manner he used it with telling effect on many occasions. As I reflect back, I found that there are many dimensions to his multifaceted personality. I have often found that his designing mind could reveal to me wider and deeper insights into problems than what I have ever imagined. As an administrator, he looked at organizational hierarchy as a mere administrative convenience and treated rules of governance as guidelines to be followed in spirit. As a result, he treated all subjects under the hierarchy with a sense of fair play and impartiality, thereby emerging as a champion of the underdog. What is most remarkable about him was that he maintained his personal standards of punctuality and self-discipline throughout his illustrious career in the institute. Interacting with him has been a lifelong education for me and many others in that era.
NRK took up the position of Deputy Director in 1960. As the Deputy Director of the Institute in the early formative years, Professor Kamath held the center stage and undertook the yeoman task of setting the framework and processes to streamline the running of academic programs. He was credited for drafting the Institute's earliest academic offerings and considered the father of all academic things, who strode the Institute corridors with the rules of his tongue. When JEE was initiated in 1963, it was Professor Kamat who undertook the responsibility of conducting the examination.
Professor Kamat is a many-splendored personality. He has varied interests. People may know that he is a professor of chemical technology, but his interests are so wide that people may be surprised to know that he was interested in liberal arts. Just to give an example, he was interested in painting, art. He was a very good friend of Sri K.K. Hebbar, internationally famous artist. He was also a self-made man, and his personality characteristic is quite different from what we can see from outside. To cite a few things, first director was Brigadier Bose. He was a civil engineer retired from army. The entire architecture of IIT Bombay, the buildings, landscape, roads, corridors, etc. were all planned and executed by him. So Brigadier Bose is the architect of the entire IIT infrastructure. In the same breath, I can say, similarly, the entire academic structure, academic program and academic structure is completely due to Professor Kamat. He was the architect of UG, PG and doctoral programs.
I'm Rekha Rege Natkarni, Chemical 1968. Really honored to be here. Professor Kamat's unique style of teaching, using humor to drive a point home, is something I have cherished all these years. He was sensitive to the fact that I was the only young woman in the department at the time. I appreciated his support through his reassuring look whenever I was in a tough spot. I admired Mrs. Kamat as well for her caring and unassuming ways. Aside from his intellect, his knowledge, experience, and field of influence, I am awed and humbled by Professor Kamat's strength of character.
I wish to provide insight seldom known about my Professor N R Kamath. In my opinion, I consider him to be a philanthropist, as he donated ₹1 lakh in 1974 to his school at a time when such a gesture was rare and unexpected. Somehow he came to know that Canara High School, Mangalore had no funds to pay salaries to the teachers. This happened soon after his superannuation from IIT Bombay, and this amount, in those days, I consider to be worth nearly 1 crore today. NRK's donation 40 years ago was a rare gesture, and the headmaster of the school was shocked to receive such a large sum, as never in the history of the school had anyone ever donated such a huge amount, and especially from a teacher. My admiration for this wonderful professor is immense, and his legacy should be taken forward, especially by hundreds of his students who had benefited from his guidance and integrity. On this occasion of his centenary, I offer my heartfelt tribute to this gentleman and the commitment he gave to the cause of education and building a better world for us.
Professor N R Kamath was an outstanding teacher and technologist who had a profound influence on his students. He was a dynamic teacher in class, with his favorite subjects being polymer chemistry and material science. He kept his students enthralled with his high-speed reeling of facts, figures, and his witty comments.
Professor Kamath his forte had been polymer chemistry, polymer morphology, production of polymers, their applications, and he was absolutely completely drenched into this field ever since he did his PhD work in England. His class used to be a thrill to attend. He would rattle off several names of polymers, their polymerization process sequences, whether they were straight chain polymers, ring polymers, and polymers of all kinds. He introduced the idea to the class of how bonding of monomers into polymers could be sort of custom made in what we call now designer polymers, to introduce the type of strength that was needed, the type of tensile strength that was needed. Throughout the lecture, he used to simply start from one end of the blackboard and go on scribbling away all the various process schemes and the polymers and their names and their sequences of reactions and so on, until the blackboard completely filled up. He didn't very often erase the blackboard, and so at the end of the class, the blackboard used to look completely cluttered with formulae and names of polymers and their reaction sequences and so on and so forth. It was a thrill to watch. His lectures were always sprinkled with humor, wit and wisdom, particularly humor concerning the contemporary politics of the day. So it was always an hour that we looked forward to attending about 2 or 3 times a week. And throughout the class lecture, his total mastery and brilliance as a polymer technologist completely overwhelmed everyone in the class.
It was in 1955 when I returned from Gujarat after completing my BSc. I got an admission into BSc Tech course into Technology of Plastics. At that time, I came in contact with Professor N R Kamath. Subsequently, he also gave me a lot of help and enrolled me as a MSc Tech student as well. After completion of my thesis, he even recommended me to Chika Limited, and I got my first job there. When Professor Kamat turned 60, all the past students decided to celebrate it in a unique manner. We all contributed individually the amount which should be minimum 60,000 collectively. We collected even more, and we had a very nice function. At the function, we presented a check of rupees 60,000 to him. This was a unique event in the history of UDCT at that point of time. The amount further generated by publication of souvenir was converted into a trust for education and related activities. Subsequently, the amount of the trust amount was distributed to 3 different institutes, namely Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers, the Color Society, and Indian Plastic Institute, with a request that every year at the time of Professor Kamath's birthday, they should conduct some course or some activity on 6th September or in and around that date. N R Kamath was not only an excellent teacher, but a good human being. He helped the people in a great way. He has created an excellent impression in my life, which I will cherish for a long time to come.
For many students, Professor Kamath was the inspiration that set them on the road to success. For some other students, his shoulders were the ones on which they rested their problems. For many young faculty, he was the ultimate mentor and role model. For the underdogs, he was their champion. For the institution, he was the epitome of an educationalist par excellence. Gurus such as Professor N R Kamath helped shape great institutions and bless the individuals in it with the priceless and sublime gift of knowledge that sustains over several generations. Thanks, Professor N R Kamath, for this priceless gift of knowledge and pioneering mentorship. You will always, forever, live in our hearts.
चोरहार्यं न च राजहार्यं न भ्रातृभाजं न च भारकारी व्यये कृते वर्धत एव नित्यम् विद्याधनं सर्वधन प्रधानम्